Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about setting up great text evidence. And to do that, we blend and punctuate our quotes. Blending is when we take a quote and, as it's called, blend it into our paragraph by using some sort of a signal phrase. Here's an example of what this might look like. We use a context clue, something that gives us some information on what's happening in the moment of the text evidence. We name the speaker, and if there's a listener, we name the listener. And then we give our quote. This way, our quote is not just dropped into the middle of a paragraph, it's blended in. This is also called embedding text evidence. So, to set up and blend your own text evidence, first give a small context clue. Oftentimes, context clues start with words like as or although or when, and then we name the speaker and a listener if there is a listener. Sometimes there is no listener, and sometimes the speaker may really be the thinker if the speaker is not saying something to anybody. It could just be the thinker. Now, if your text evidence is not dialogue, it could just simply be that the author is, in this case, the speaker. Let's take a look at some different types of quotes. If you have non-dialogue text evidence, like the type of quote I just mentioned, here is how you would punctuate it. Before we get into the rules, let's look at this sample. This is from the Hunger Games. Our context clue is Katniss demonstrates bravery when she realizes, and then we go right into the quote. So in this case, the context clue is that this is a moment when she realizes bravery. All right. Um, the speaker, so you can think of it this way if you like, is she. It's Katniss, and we have a little verb here to lead into the quote. All right. So you'll notice that in this case, there's no comma before the start of the text evidence. We've embedded it, so the way that we've blended it, the sentence just flows right into it. We put quotation marks around our quotes and parentheses around our citation. And you'll notice that the period goes at the very end of that citation. Let's take a look at dialogue text evidence, which is probably the most common type of text evidence. In this case, if your text evidence is all dialogue, we've got a little bit of a context clue. Katniss displays love for Rue when, and then we kind of have our speaker, Katniss, all right, and she's promising, and this is her speaking. So you'll notice that the way we punctuate dialogue text evidence is slightly different from other types. I'll zoom in my screen a bit. We give our larger quotes right here, and then we do a little apostrophe. So essentially we've got in a way almost 3 apostrophes in a row, and we do that at the end of the dialogue also. That is telling the reader that what you were quoting is something that in the book was already in quotes. All right, and then of course we'll give our citation. So we give the author's last name and the page number. If your text evidence is a mix of dialogue and description or thought, you'll need to do a little bit more punctuating here. So you'll still give your regular quotation mark, but then whenever the dialogue begins, you'll put your apostrophe right here. And now this ends with dialogue, so we have our little triple apostrophe down here. If you want to review these examples in more detail, you can pause the video right here. And now several students have asked, what do I do if I have a really long quote and I don't need all of it? That's when we replace or remove text evidence within a quote. There are a couple things that we do here. If you need to change the text evidence within the quote to, for example, make it more grammatically correct, you'll put whatever you change in brackets. Let's take a look at this example here. Simon is considerate because when sitting between the twins and Piggy, he shoved a piece of meat over the rocks to Piggy, who grabbed it. And I wonder if you know what book this is from. So to make this quote grammatically correct, I included the word he. That did not appear rather in the original text. So in this case, I put it in brackets. This is more complex stuff. So keep in mind, you're only doing this if you're changing your text evidence from how it appears in the text. All right. And if you have removed some text, so let's say this quote was super long, you put 3 dots. Those are called ellipses to connect whatever text evidence you do have to wherever you pick it up. Okay, so those are some really specific ways to punctuate evidence. But what I really want you to gather from this video is that text evidence can never just be plopped into a quote. It always needs to be led into with some blending. So I might do something like this. When Harrison invites the ballerina to join him, and then I could give a quote. So I have my context clue. He says, and maybe he says this to the whole crowd, so I could include the listener if I want, or if it's getting a bit too long, I don't have to. He says, comma, quotation mark, who dares rise and join her mate on her throne. And then I give my quotation mark. And I'm going to cite with the author's last name, page number, close parentheses, and period. All right, let's do one more. Near the end of the novel, the author shows how the musicians scrambled back into their chairs. I'm going to type this out and then show you what I did here. So here's an example of when there is no speaker. All right. So I'm just describing what's happening in the text. I have my context clue, and I've got a little bit of a subject here. So in this case, like I said, it's not really a speaker. All right. And then I give, in this case, I don't have a comma because there's no dialogue. All right. I just blend right into it. I give my quote with my quotation marks. There is no period here because the period comes at the very end. I could also, watch this, I could do this. Near the end of the novel, the musicians scrambled back into their chairs. In this case, I have a comma because this is how a comma would appear in a normal sentence if I didn't have it in quotes. So remember, quotes cannot just be dropped into paragraphs. They must be blended and punctuated correctly. This set of rules is going to be posted on this slideshow, and there are also charts, physical charts that you can take from the cart or the resource wall.